With the younger kids, it was a lot of like just having that relationship together. It's those times that we get to read stories together, to bond over great books together. As they get older, a lot of it is collaborating with them to help them kind of design what they want to be learning, and then helping them build the skills and motivations and capacities to construct a day that's productive. So we're trying to help them learn the autodidact skills, those skills of how can I become a self-learner, because that's one of the most important things we feel for them. Yes, curriculum is kind of in there, and we kind of have maybe a couple things we want to make sure they learn. The rest of it, they can choose whatever they want. But it's the skill to be able to do it themselves. A very kind old man is trying to mansplain to her how to change a tire, and she's just like, whatever, I know what I'm doing. And
I was just calling to tell you that it happened.
What if I told you that a story could teach your child more history, science, math, and literature than a year of textbooks? Welcome to the Story Schooling Podcast. I'm Angel Selden, author of Curiouser.
And I'm Sandy Fouts, co-founder of Wonder While Learning.
So welcome, Stephen and Claire. We were good friends with Stephen and Claire. We're still good friends, but their family lived in Minnesota while Sandy was also living in Minnesota, and Stephen was getting his PhD at the U of M. Claire has been homeschooling for 19 years. She has 7 children. She is the outgoing president of Leadership Education Academy for Families, which serves over 30 families in Washington state. She developed some of the program for scholars at that academy. Is that correct?
Yeah, leadership and some history classes.
Very cool. And Stephen, you're a professor at the University of Washington.
yes, at the Bothell campus.
Very cool. And what are you a professor of?
So I'm in the business school. I teach strategy and entrepreneurship, and I do research on teams, trust, and cooperation and conflict.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to pick your brains. You've had 19 years of homeschooling experience. You have a lot of stories. But before we hear some of these stories, will you give us a little bit of background on how you got into homeschooling in the first place?
Yeah. So when our oldest, Elise, was, and you've interviewed her, right? When she was turning 5, the little school next to us had this like kindergarten preview. And so we went to that and we sat in the little chairs and saw the little classroom, and we thought, we could really do all of this ourselves. And she was just a petite little tiny thing. I remember the preview, they're like, we have a dedicated guard who's always here. And I was like, why do we need a guard at school? You know, this was 19 years ago. And so I was like, is she going to get picked on? Is it not going to be a safe place? And as we were driving home, I was like, I can't homeschool out of fear. Like, that can't be where I'm coming from, is because I'm afraid of what's going to happen. And so we read some books and we prayed about it and we talked about it a lot. I was homeschooled some of my years growing up. And so my parents were really supportive of homeschooling, and I wasn't afraid of it. And so we decided to keep her home that year. And then the next year we decided to keep her home. And then the next year I don't know, they've just always been home. And it's been lovely. That's how we got into it.
So
Right.
what was Stephen's thought process? Because this is
Yeah.
a lot of like what you went through, Claire.
So my background is a little different. I was in public school up through 12th grade, and both of my parents are public school teachers, so strong history in it. But I very much trusted Claire in what she was capable of doing, and I agreed that we could do a lot of this ourselves. And we kind of took it a year at a time, each time, and kind of reflected on the last year and thought about what would be best for them next year. And each time it was to keep them home.
I love that it was a year-by-year decision, that you were always open to changing the plan. And this feels like it's the right thing for now. This is the right next step, but you don't have to decide this is the right next 12 steps in
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
our lives.
Yeah. It gave a lot of freedom to change our minds. Like, if this isn't working, but also if it is working, that we can keep going.
19 years later.
I know, right? Yeah. 3 kids in college, 4 kids at home. Yeah.
Well, so tell us a story from your homeschool experience that you feel like really embodies the principles that you value in education.
The really high highs and the really low lows. So acknowledging that that's in there. But what is one of those experiences that was that win of where you did things just right so that you had, and maybe not just right, but you learned a lesson from it, and what was the outcome there? So tell us a story.
Start with like
With
turkeys and pigs or
Let's
something.
start with turkeys and pigs.
Okay.
After we left Minnesota, we moved to Wyoming and we got a place on 17 acres with a barn, and we started raising chickens and turkeys and pigs. And everyone was like, oh, it's like, we want to do 4-H, we want to do 4-H. And everyone's like, start with pigs. Pigs are easy. No, they're not easy. But so we get these piglets, right? And we carry them in the back of our minivan because we don't have anything else. So we have these pigs squealing in the back of the minivan, and we get them home into this like half-baked enclosure that we threw together. And so the first year we raised pigs, well, the kids, not I was the support person, but the kids were the ones feeding them. And it turns out that you have to walk pigs. Do you guys ever walked a pig?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. So part of we didn't know that you had to walk the pigs until the pigs were about 150 pounds. So you think of little tiny Elise and Mason and Sammy, because they were the ones who could do it. Elise was 13, so they were like 13, 11, and 9. And, maybe 80 pounds dripping wet. And they have to walk these pigs. So you get like your pig stick, and the thing that you're really supposed to do is when they're little, you start training them how to do it. You don't wait until they're 150 pounds and then try to do it, because you have to show the pigs in a ring. You have to move the pigs from place to place, and fully weighed out. Were they 200?
150 pounds.
Yeah. And so you have to start early so that by the time they're 250 pounds, they do what you say. So we had pigs escape to the pond and just hanging out in the pond, and we can't do anything. And so that was the first year of raising pigs. Second year, they decided to do it again because in Wyoming, they make like $2,000 for a pig at auction. And
Wow.
so the second year, we're like, okay, well, we know what to do now. So we had a better enclosure. We had the sticks from day one, and we're walking them. You also have to shave them and bathe them and put sunscreen on them and lotion their skin.
I didn't know they were so high maintenance.
Yeah, fair they are. You're just raising them for other reasons, but if you're doing 4-H, then you're doing all of the things. I
Okay.
remember Elise came in one time, and she's like, just give me an X. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Gotta kill it. Gotta kill my pig. It was a very high stress situation. But by the end, our barn was down the hill. They would walk the pigs up the hill. They would set out pyres and boards and things in the front, and they would do like this obstacle course with the pigs, because over the time spent with them, they figured out, start early and make them do what you want, and they'll do it. What's more about the pigs?
They are hard to get into the back of a trailer. We borrowed our neighbor's horse trailer.
Lydia was here for one loading. Lydia and Mary,
Oh,
you guys were
really?
Yeah.
So pigs are hard to load. They don't want to go where they want to go, and they're big and they squeal, and
Strong.
they are very strong, right? And so we had to get them in, having never done this before. And so I backed the trailer up to about 30 feet from the entrance into the pig area. I thought, well, they move them around with their sticks. Can't they just kind of like get them to go up the ramp and shove them a little bit from the rear? Useless. It tried over an hour, just these pigs going every which way. And so then
there were 3 of them.
We finally figured out that we had to back the trailer all the way up to the fence and to the opening of the gate. And then we got boards and kind of blocked off any kind of open spaces that they could try to sneak out of. And then we got more boards, and you kind of have to deflect them and push them into the way that you want to go.
Any little space, they will nose their way in.
And so then we finally got them in. And then as we were at fair that first year, I was observing, how do they move these pigs around? And it was similar to what we had finally found out, you get these chutes. The chutes are about 3 feet tall on each side, and they're narrow. And the only way the pigs can go is through the chutes, and then they have these kind of 4x4 boards that men hold and
Like the dads.
kind of push them from behind or block the angles that they can go to kind of get them into that where you want them to go, right? And I couldn't help but just think about our kids are a little bit like pigs, right? They will just go where they want to go. The one thing we can do is kind of put the chutes on, though, like kind of put the walls that then they're like, okay, you can work within this space, and then you can often get them to go where you want them to go, but you kind of have to build the structure around it to make sure. If you just leave it completely open, they'll just, who knows where they'll end up.
There's so many funny pig stories. To that point, like that's something that we've always tried to do in our home is like we've set things up so that we are completely fine with them doing anything in our home, like the toys that we choose, the books that we have. We've always had space and shovels and dirt. We've curated our home so that within those bounds they can do pretty much whatever they want.
I love that. So you give them freedom within a framework.
Yeah.
And some things are off limits, but you're not forcing them to do one particular thing,
Yeah.
Right.
usually. So that was a great metaphor, the pig metaphor for how you homeschool. Can you explain a little more about your approach, what your day looks like, what your year looks like?
And I would
Yeah.
also add, how has that changed over the years? Because over 19 years, I'm guessing it changed a bit. We've talked about how Angel, I know, had this shift within hers.
Yeah, that part has to be with it because I can be like, well, do you want how I homeschooled in the beginning or 5 years in or 10 years in or like now? Because it absolutely changes a lot. When I started, I was young, I had all sorts of energy. I only had 3 kids. And so with every additional child or with every additional year that I get older, or, we've lived in Oregon and Utah and Minnesota and Wyoming, and now we're in Washington. And every place is different, and the people that you meet are different, and the things that you learn, like me individually, that I have learned have been different every place that I've been. And so of course things have changed.
Mhm.
When I was a new cute little homeschool mom, we had a little board, and it had reading, writing, and math. And then there was like a to do, and then we had a little Velcro, and we'd pull it up and stick it on done. And I was like, if we can do those things every day, then that's great. But within each of those things, I was like, okay, what is math? And I was like, okay, I consider math cooking with me. I consider it playing games because I needed a framework. I needed to know that I was doing something every day. And then, writing, we'd do lots of letter writing, or we would, copy letters or whatever, we'd write in cornmeal and do it was very broad. Then, and then reading, we just read and read and read and read books. That was a pretty easy one. So that was my like young, energetic self. And then, I had babies, I had death in the family.
Yeah.
Then it was like, I'm barely functioning homeschooling. Like, here we live on a farm, go do things because I can't really do much. And in Minnesota, we started a really cool homeschool co-op. And when we moved to Washington, we found this really great group of people to be a part of. But my youngest two, so they're almost 11 and 9, I'm a completely different homeschool parent now. Like, I rely on outside classes more for them to do things because I'm really busy. So we still read every day, and there's things that we do most days. Like we watch CNN 10 and World from A to Z and take little math classes or art classes. But I was much more present with my older kids than I am with my younger kids. And sometimes I beat myself up a little bit about that. But then also, I really believe that they're getting the experience that they need now, just like my older kids got the experience that they needed without breaking myself over it, I guess. I don't know, what have you seen change?
Well, I think it changes because the children are older. And so with the younger kids, it was a lot of like just having that relationship together and having those wonderful experiences. For me, for instance, with our younger Ruth and Ezra, it's those times that we get to read stories together. My favorite book is Heidi by Johanna Spiri. I read it with my children, whoever's around 10 years to 12 years old. Every couple, 2 to 3 years, I pull it back out and read it again with them. Um, because it's such a meaningful book to me. Reading Winnie the Pooh and the House at Pooh Corner by A.A. Milne is another just classic, wonderful book to read with children. We're reading the Hardy Boys right now, kind of just some fun books. But that chance to read with them is this wonderful bonding experience, these memories. Elise, our oldest, that's now in her 20s, I still have just fond memories of reading with her when she was years old, and so that's what it's like with the younger children, at least from my experience, right? Is these chances to bond over great books together. As they get older, a lot of it is collaborating with them to help them kind of design what they want to be learning, and then helping them build the skills and motivations and capacities to construct a day that's productive. And so much of our conversation, and this is a weekly conversation, we have weekly sessions every Sunday night with our kids where we're reflecting on the week, figuring out what worked, what did not work, and helping them think through skills, how they set up their day to make sure that they are successful, really them that's doing it. So we're trying to help them learn the autodidact skills, those skills of how can I become a self-learner, because that's one of the most important things we feel for them. Yes, curriculum is kind of in there, and we kind of have maybe a couple things we want to make sure they learn. The rest of it, they can choose whatever they want, but it's the skill to be able to do it themselves.
And we play kind of different roles in that. When the kids were younger, like our older kid, Stephen was in school for 7 years because he was insanely busy. He was gone a lot, but he would read with them at night. And now as they've gotten older, sometimes they just take things better from him. If he's like, I'm like, I think you should do this. They're like, and then he's like, I think you should do this, saying the same thing. And they're like, wow, that's really brilliant. I love you guys. I do. But so that's interesting to think how your role has shifted also as they've gotten older. But you still do the reading with the little ones, and then you're having these conversations with the older ones.
That mentorship is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not creating their plan for them. You're not giving them a plan. You are saying, hey, I'm here to facilitate you creating a plan for yourself. I'm a resource, not a taskmaster. I can be a guide.
Every Sunday night, so we're sitting around the table, we've done all of our calendaring, and then we ask these questions. We say, how was I this last week? And we get to answer. And then we ask, what can I do for you this week? And so we ask each of the kids, and each of the kids asks us those questions.
Can I just interject on why
please.
these questions? Our child, say Lincoln, he's 16, he will ask, how was I this last week? And we frame that question that way because by asking the question, we're inviting someone to give us criticism. And I think that's so important. Instead of just giving feedback, that we're training them to say, I want your feedback and I'm welcoming your feedback, good or bad, right? And as parents, then when they ask that, we don't just unload on them, right?
Well, let me tell you.
But we do offer direct feedback, both here's what we felt went well, and this is what I saw this week that didn't go well, right? And sometimes Claire will also say, well, how do you think you did? How do you think you did? And I can give them the first chance to respond.
It was horrible. I'm like, I don't think it was that bad. Yeah, there's some things you need to do better, but.
So we love that question for being able to invite that, to teach them to invite feedback. And then the second, what can I do for you this week, is that idea around service. We want all of them to always not just be thinking about themselves when they're developing their skills, but also thinking about others that matter to them in their lives. And how can I help you, mom and dad, or you, brother and sister, or you as the family, to be successful too?
Yeah. We want each other's success.
For
Mhm.
what a theme service has always been within your homeschool. I remember that very distinctly inspiring me to want to include that more because you made an intention of helping your kids think outside of themselves. And so you created opportunities often. Off the top of my head comes the clothing exchange. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Refresh my
Gifts of the
memory.
heart.
Gifts
Gifts
of
of
the
the heart.
heart. Yes.
Angel designed our logo for us. Got
And
hearts.
then
I don't even remember designing your
Oh,
logo.
yeah.
Oh, that makes me happy. And they still do it. Somebody has carried on your legacy. I don't know if they call it Gifts of the Heart anymore, but they continue to do it every September.
And then I remember going to nursing homes and singing. Sometimes as homeschool moms, we forget because we do a lot of things just naturally. It just comes from us. Like we pour ourselves into it and we forget. We don't realize our uniqueness that we're actually bringing. And when somebody else's eyes are on it, they can bring to light really all the good that you're doing. So the other thing, and this was prevalent in the conversation that we had with Elise that also stood out to me. And I've had you shared it with me a long time ago, and I wanted to do it. And I have some regret that I've never actually done it successfully. And that's your inventory that you take. And
Oh,
what impressed me, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that. But what really impressed me about your inventory is the imperfect way that you did it. And by that, I mean, you literally had the cheapest spiral bound notebook and it was just penciled in.
There it is.
It wasn't Pinterest worthy. You
Yeah.
didn't take time to make it like this huge thing. It was simplicity in its form and consistency. And because of its simplicity and your consistency, it had this profound effect on your family as a whole. And you could hear that in a conversation that we had with Elise. And so
Oh.
there are things I think within your homeschool that have stayed consistent, even though we change and our methodologies change a little bit. There's some that consistent thread through stories. Like that is a theme of your homeschool. I wish we had a picture of your bookshelves because they way rival mine. Like I think I have a lot of books and
Oh,
bookshelves.
I
but
love your bookshelves too.
I
You
think
have
you
beautiful
10x
bookshelves.
mine. And so that's a theme from the very beginning and then maybe even has served different purposes, but is a solid foundation. Even though it shifts and it looks different throughout those 18 years, there have been some common threads. So I don't know if you want to talk about any of those things, but those are some things that really impressed me about the style and way in which you educated throughout the years.
So I just made a note to myself to do the inventories because I haven't been good about doing them with the younger kids. Like each of the older kids, I ended up putting, so it's just like, it really is just notebook paper and a pen and then questions that I just ask and think about each child. And so each of the older kids, they like have their own little binder full of them that when they get married, I'm going to gift to them. But
Oh, that's such a great idea.
yeah, but I need to do that for the younger kids. So like
But
what
what you talk about this Sunday, this like weekly meeting that you're having is very reminiscent of your quarterly meeting. So it's not, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it has shifted a little bit in the way that it's
Yeah.
presented, but I think it's still there within that.
Yeah, the Sunday meetings are, oh gosh, we started those like 2004
Yeah.
when Mason was born. Those have turned out to be one of the most important pieces of our family functioning that we have. Like,
Yeah, they're non-negotiable. It falls apart if we don't do them.
Yeah, it does.
It's
Yeah.
like we've just found them. We have to do the time together Sunday nights to plan, to coordinate, and to do the inventory with each other.
Yeah, I
That's what we're
guess
doing.
that's kind of what we're doing.
And one of the things that comes up is like, maybe we have a child that is too much on a screen and
This might be
not,
happening right now.
too much on the Kindle or other thing and wasting time. And then even more, maybe not being completely honest about all of that. Right. And so instead of kind of blowing up or calling them out right at the time when that happens, we will say, okay, this is an item for Sunday night inventory. When we're calm, when we're in a happy mood together, and then we can really talk through these things in a constructive way. And so it's not about punishing. It's about recognizing, hey, this is a struggle. He hasn't built his capacity yet to in that brain of his that's still that pleasure center is pushing him in a certain direction, and he knows that he doesn't really want to be doing that, but it's just too much of a fun thing kind of thing, right? And so let's take it from kind of this punishment mindset to be, how can we help you work through this so that you can be productive? And that's what that meeting is good for.
Yeah, like we've had our adult children who have lived at home in those meetings say, I need you to take my phone away from me at 9 o'clock every night. I'm like, I'm so happy to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
And then we'll ask,
they set their consequences.
what should be the consequence? And then
they set up consequences that we would never do. They're like, I don't get my phone the next day. Okay, we can help you enforce this.
Yeah.
And I would say that kind of a relationship comes from you having established a relationship of love and trust from the beginning and respect of them.
I'm going to throw a spoiler alert in because I don't think you've had the opportunity to listen to Elisa's interview that we had with her. And her final words of wisdom, what words of wisdom would you give as a teenager to maybe a homeschool mom? Like, what did you learn throughout this? And she said unconditional love. Whether I had made mistakes, that's what made me who I am now, is because I felt that throughout the years. And so I can see that is probably a direct result of those meetings, because you can call out yourself like, I wasn't perfect this week. And I love, Stephen, that you bring out the point that you're doing it at a time when the heat of the moment is gone and we can be so much more reflective. So they feel this, what we call it in our house is I'm team Zach, or I'm team Jeffrey. Like, we're on your team. All we want is to like be your cheerleader and be on there and help you become the best version of yourself. And that comes through unconditional love and not shame. And so I could see the power of those meetings creating that feeling of love, no matter what.
And all of it, like starts when they're little and we're reading together and we're snuggling on the couch and we're not turning them away, but we're welcoming them to us. Like, all of it started when they were just so little. Like, that's just always been, we were like, we want to keep this relationship. We need to keep the relationship strong. We need to listen to their little concerns, because as they get bigger, then their concerns get bigger. And if we turn them away when they're little, they're not going to come to us when they're bigger.
Amen. I want to add that this isn't just, I think it can be easy to listen to these stories and think, well, maybe they just have different kids than I do. And certainly kids can vary a lot, but that I have had the same experience, and I know other families who have had the same experience. Building that relationship when they're little, it's such a high return on investment. I was just talking to Rebecca a couple weeks ago, and we were marveling at how our kids have all had some public school experience or college experience, and how driven they are to get straight A's. And we have not pushed our kids in that way at all. And yet they push themselves harder in whatever it is they're pursuing, sports, dance, like Elise, or academics. They push themselves harder than what we would expect. So I've had the same experience, and it really works.
The kids who have been in college have all said, they've all been like, thank you so much for kind of teaching us through how to do things on our own, because they get there and they are very competent doing things on their own. And they say their peers will often struggle because they've always had what to do told to them. And suddenly they have less class and more homework.
Yeah. I think that what's most common in when we're doing this weekly time with them, most of the effort is around, my day didn't go as well as I had hoped. I had these things I wanted to learn. That learning takes a lot of effort. It wears me down. I have this easy out where I can just get distracted and do whatever else I want to do that's interesting to me, but it's taking me away from my goal. And so a lot of it is brainstorming around, okay, what should we try different this time, right? Because it's about motivation, right? And all of us are motivated or unmotivated. And how do we kind of hack that in a way that we can get to those goals that we have? And so it's a lot of them doing discovery and discovering about themselves and how they can keep on task. And again, we're talking about kind of 14 and older age group. And so helping them learn that and brainstorming with them. And okay, let's try that this week, right? And okay, last week it didn't work. That's all right. Let's try that. Let's keep going on this, right? A lot of cheerleading, encouraging, giving them ideas, reflecting with them.
And usually by the time they leave, then they have something figured out that actually works.
Right. Getting comfortable with experimenting and making mistakes and saying, this didn't work, let's try something else. That all outcomes are good information. It's not you failed because what you tried this week didn't work. It's I'm experimenting with different ways until I find a way that works for me.
And that's part of the learning, right? It's not just mathematics or arithmetic or history, whatever. Like that lesson is so important. And that is a very intentional lesson that we help them learn.
There's more of a focus on process than results.
Mm-hmm.
You're concerned with the process of learning and not do you know the thing? Do you know this list of things? Because what they're learning from is the process.
You should interview my friend Jen Jarrett, because for LEAF, they put together these 9 scholar skills. And so like the goal of LEAF classes is not content, but it's teaching these skills. And the content is just the vehicle to teach the skills. It's really good. You guys should talk to her. You'd like her. Well, you know Jen, Angel. She says hi, by the way.
Yeah, let's set up an interview with her. Right. You have to have some goal like, hey, I'm working towards this thing, whether it's I want to write a magazine article or I want to learn this thing. But it's the process is where the real treasure of the learning happens in
It's
the figuring
developing
it
the
out.
human.
It's a principle, right? The principle can be applied to any number of things because that's what true principles do.
Exactly.
Sandy, what was your question?
Okay. I have
Yeah.
I want to know how this went in the end. So I remember a time when you created a list. Now I may be exaggerating, but I think that there were like 100+ things on this spreadsheet of things you wanted your kids to learn before they left home.
yeah.
And I can remember things like how to change a tire, life skills, like everything imaginable was on that list. And in my brain, what?
Even
milking a
milking
cow,
cow.
was that on the list? So I remember thinking, wow, that's fantastic, but there's no way. My kids are like in my mind, it was overwhelming. Like I could never teach my kids all of those things. Like they're just going to have to figure some things out on their own. So I just want to know the end result. You have grown kids now, kids who have left. Did you check every item off that list?
Absolutely not.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm here for you. Yeah.
But was it also a good vehicle though?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that list was probably more for me. Like these are things that like it forced me to put down what are things that are important to me. What are things that I think my kids need to know. And though like Ruthie, who's 10, almost 11. Oh, no, she had her birthday, right?
Yes, yeah.
She's 11. Okay. It's hard when there's lots of kids. Okay. Ruthie, who's 11, has like pulled out the list. And right now she has all sorts of time. And so she's been going through the list and like sewing with grandma. Like she spent a few days with Grandma Jones and took the list with her, like with all of the like sewing things. And so she and grandma sewed on a button. And she's like, I still need to hem curtains. It's like, great. I can help. Like you can do mine. That's great. But it's like this source of inspiration for her because she really wants a sewing machine. And once she can do all of these things in this like home, like taking care of clothing, her reward is her own sewing machine. So I don't know if anyone has gotten all of the things in any of the boxes, but yeah.
One did turn out helpful for Elise. She was serving as a missionary and they got a flat tire. One of the things is to learn how to change a tire. Elise and her companion have to pull over with a flat tire and she's like, no problem. And so she just gets out and they call the mission office and a very kind old man is trying to mansplain to her how to change a tire. And she's just like, whatever, I know what I'm doing. And
I was just calling to tell you that it happened and I'm taking care of it.
Yeah. So she just whips it out, puts the new tire on and they're on their way. So
So, see, she didn't do everything on there, but she can change a tire and change the oil.
Okay, but something I heard you say that I think is important to know is when you talked about Ruthie with her sewing, you guys didn't teach all of these skills. Like those ideas are there, but she's learning some of that sewing skills from somebody else. So it's pulling other mentors into their life. And I've seen that throughout what you guys have done a lot too. Your kids have been interested in something that goes a little bit beyond your knowledge. I've seen you pull mentors into their life. And I'm like, that's another principle that you've done really well.
I think we've learned that over time. And as Claire has gotten more busy, we always thought, oh, we can do this. Now it's like we recognize we can't do all this. We need others with their expertise and help and time to do it. One, for instance, our son Lincoln has dyslexia, really quite severe, and we have my mother was a first grade teacher and just fantastic at teaching reading, and she now does twice weekly lessons with him to help him with his reading, which has been just tremendously helpful. It's something that we could not do ourselves. She also does it with Ruth, who doesn't struggle with reading, but just it was a little bit harder for her than some of the other kids. And those twice weekly meetings with my mother over Zoom, learning to read, have been extremely helpful. So,
and not just like academically, but now Ruth knows her grandma. Like grandma's in Idaho and we're in Washington, and she gets this time to just know and love her grandma. And so when we're going to take Mason to school, we drop Ruthie and Ezra off at grandma's house, and they are so excited to be together in person and like, let's do all these sewing projects. But it's been great for building relationships also. Yeah, your mom's great.
yeah.
So then I love that it keeps coming back to relationships. And you mentioned relationships, that books were a vehicle for relationships. So often, like our analytical mind would say, okay, we're going to read to our kids because we want all these words and this language. And yeah, that's a benefit. But I think the strongest thing that I've gotten from reading aloud to my kids has been specifically the relationships that are built there. And our podcast is story schooling. So I love to bring that piece of it into it. What are some other effects that you have seen from reading within your home, since that's been a big theme there?
Sammy was told on his mission by someone that he speaks like a 50-year-old professor. And he was like, huh, my dad is that. There's also this piece of discussing things. So like, it is easy to think, I'm going to read this book because it is educational and we are going to have a discussion and we're going to identify vocabulary words and like kind of this very analytical way of reading. But I think so much is it kind of natural things that come from it. So at one point a couple of years ago, when we were doing our read aloud in the morning, any word that we didn't know, we'd stop and we'd put it on this poster and we'd put the definition of it, and then we'd read the part again and we're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. We weren't reading for vocab, but we didn't know what the word was. And so we're like, oh, well, let's just make a list of these words that we don't know. And then you hear, actually, Sammy said, he's like, I think Ezra also talks like a 50-year-old professor. And at that moment from the other room, Ezra's like, what's the word he used? It was what was it? It was the most funny thing. It was like this 4-syllable word that completely described what was going on in his life. And Sammy's like, it's Ezra too. Like we all speak like 50-year-old professors. But yeah.
I think so two things. One, I think part of that comes from just dinner table conversation, right? The things we talk
He
about.
listens to a lot of podcasts.
But to the question about some of the stories and how they play a role, a lot of them have been about building like individual relationships with a child or two children. But there's also some family bonding ones when it comes to going on road trips. So we listen to stories in the car together. Chickens in the headlights. Fabulous story. We listen together. We laugh together at it. It's something that anytime any of us can reflect back on together, about and bring that memory back in of those good times. There's others too.
Yeah, best Christmas pageant ever, cheaper by the dozen, Little Britches. And even like there's shared language that we have in our house. Like, I'm going on an expotition and like there's all sorts of things from Winnie the Pooh or
Winnie the Pooh.
other that we've read that now is just part of our shared little inside things in our family.
Yeah. So sometimes it's listening to books together in the car, but then there's also just books that all of us have read individually as well. So in our family, we're all big Brandon Sanderson fans in his books. So if it's the Stormlight Archive or Mistborn trilogy or other books, so we've all read them multiple times. And so we will be just talking. Often it's actually when we're like reading scriptures together, there's some kind of like Way of Kings analogy that insinuates itself. This is like,
all the time.
Yeah, all that. It's actually.
We're like, okay, we can be done now. We've had our Sanderson reference of the meal.
So there are these books that we've all read individually that then just come into our vocabulary and conversation.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how you create readers?
And how we create readers?
Question asked to me a lot, like, well, how do you get your kids to read? Like, and so you've obviously created readers within your house, but I have that question asked to me quite frequently. How do you get your kids to read?
They are surrounded by books. Everyone reads. So I read and Stephen reads and we read to them. And as they get older, they read to each other. There's just this built up over time, like happiness around books. So like books are a happy place to be. Reading together, we love to do that. And so a lot of just reading. And like Lincoln and Sammy both have dyslexia. And so a lot of audiobooks, if they can't access something that is at their cognitive level because they're stuck with this, like preschool reading level, you have to provide access to great literature. And so a lot of reading to them and a lot of audiobooks and just it's just like part of the culture. I think if they didn't see Stephen and I read as much, then they might not have become so interested in it.
And I would add, just to emphasize what Claire said, we make no distinction or discredit audiobooks at all. Like we call it reading with your eyes or reading with your ears. I mean, it's to us, it's all reading. So
we do the same. Yeah.
So we love audiobooks as well. The other thing is that I mentioned like the pigs before and we put the walls up so they're not going the direction is we limit screen time significantly. So they are not on devices certain times of the days. They have certain hours when they can and cannot be. So we just take that out of the house as an option so that they can choose what book they want to read.
So in our front room, we don't have a TV. In our front room is the most important things to us. So we have a comfy couch, some cozy chairs. We have our piano and our organ and some desks, and then this like wall of bookshelves. And so, if you display what is important to you, then that they gravitate and controlling other things. So one thing that I get asked a lot is, what about devices? What do you do? Like, how do you teach that? And I'm a huge, I guess it kind of goes back also to our kind of what we talked about with the Sunday meetings, is that it's our job to teach our kids how to use them responsibly. It's not like you can just never use them. And then all of a sudden they become adults and they like have access to all of this, but they have no self-control built around it. So we very intentionally teach kind of proper use of it. And like I have them hold me accountable too. Like we'll share screen, like, how did you spend your time on your phone this week? And I'm like, I played Candy Crush for like 2 hours. And I'm so embarrassed about it. They're like, you do that? Yeah, I do that. I'm so sorry. Like, okay, how can I help you, Mom? You can take my phone at 9:00. But like like when you buy a house, there's this graph, and like at first it's like almost everything is going to interest, and there's like just a little bit of principal, but then over time it goes down, and there's less going to interest and more going to principal. That's how we've approached teaching screens. In the beginning, I control everything. I do. I do not give my little kids unfettered access. Absolutely not. I control everything, and they have a very limited amount that they can do. And over time,
up to about what age would you say?
I don't know, 12, 13. With our 14-year-old, that's the one that we have had to like he was starting to get more and more, and now he's like back to here because it was not proving a good choice for him to have so much free time. And so we like curtailed that back. So I hold that right. As they get older, then they are making more and more of the choices. They're discussing, how did it go? How can you do better? So there's my side rant into devices, because I get asked that a lot.
Amen to all of that. And I would add too that if they are raised in a way that develops passions for other things, then once they're older and they do have more access to screens, it, in my experience, is less appealing when you have all these other amazing things in your life that you're doing and you have developed a love for reading, or you've gotten really into dance, for Elise, and
Saul and his cooking.
Well, yeah. What about that?
I'm just thinking
just that he's passionate about it?
Like, yeah, like that's something, when your kids are like, what should I do? Well, and Claire talks a lot about boredom, right?
Yes, I want to hear your thoughts on the power of boredom.
If this podcast was helpful for you, please leave us a review and share with a friend.
Until next time, start with stories and everything else will follow.
You can learn more about our other education projects at angelselden.com and wonderwelllearning.com.